Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Liam, this is my hobby room, and thanks for joining me today. Sorry it's been a little hot minute since my last video. Some stuff going on in my life here. Oh, sorry, I just had the biggest bowl of pho that I think I've ever had, and it was also one of the best bowls I've ever had. It was delicious. It's really, really good. What am I doing? So today we're doing a modified build of the 1:144 scale high-grade Gundam Nadleeh from Mobile Suit Gundam 00. Like the Gundam Virtue before it, or around it, so to speak, the Gundam Nadleeh is piloted by Thierry Arde himself, Celestial Being's very own most irritating coworker. There's something very refreshing about the take on this mobile suit. I think maybe because it's so stripped down, kind of evokes the feeling of a traditional Gundam-style mobile suit, even though it's got some eccentric accoutrements, we'll say. It does scratch that little regular Gundam itch for me, so that was kind of nice when building this kit.
The Gundam Nadleeh is a Celestial Being mobile suit reserved for special contingencies. It is hidden within the Gundam Virtue, wearing that suit as armor, with the ability to purge said armor as an emergency. It's like a little hidden guy inside, right? That's fun. Because it is essentially the naked form of the Gundam Virtue, it's also piloted by Thierry Arde. The suit is lighter and more agile in atmosphere, but also lacks a lot of the defensive and offensive power from its armored form. But in model kit form, this one, the Nadleeh is perhaps a little underwhelming out of the box, partially for the all-white plastic and its bare-bones look, which I guess is kind of the point, but it does have its own equipment, which is very unique looking, in the form of its beam rifle and its shield, and it can equip the GN cannons of the Gundam Virtue, which it doesn't come packaged with. You have to buy the Virtue for those, so that's kind of fun. The Nadleeh also comes with an optional left splayed hand. The Virtue did not, so that's interesting. One of this suit's most famous design features is its red hair-like cables that connect to the Virtue when completely armored, but they hang loose like a long-necked goose when the Nadleeh is revealed. Unfortunately, Bandai has chosen to mold these in that horrible soft plastic common to the 00 HGs. Ew, gross! However, we'll be coming up with our own solution to that later in the video, so stay tuned for that. All in all, though, the Nadleeh is a very basic model kit, but a fairly faithful representation of the mobile suit as it appears in the show. So most of the Nadleeh is actually pretty great. There's not a whole lot of stuff I'm planning on modifying with the main body, at least. Just a few caveats there, but we'll get there when we get there. So I just want to go over the parts that you might want to look at modifying on your copy if you get the HG Nadleeh, which I do recommend if you love 00 stuff, because it's a nice little kit. It is going to take a little bit of TLC to get it looking up to snuff. One easy one here is the GN drive that attaches to the back. There's this little hollow portion right here. As you can see, I have filled it over with a piece of pla plate. Now you just plug the GN drive to the back of the torso, and okay, it's going to be a little hard to see, but there is a hollow space, or normally would be a hollow space behind the torso here, where you can see right into the back of the GN drive, and it's just, I don't know, it just looks kind of bad. So that's one thing. Now, let's look at some other things. So the head here is another little problem area. Well, problem area, maybe not the right word. It's completely doable mod that I'm going to propose here, but basically you have a seam line down the top of the head. The way that the hair pieces fit in and everything obfuscates the seam line on the back of the head, so I'm not actually even worrying about it. I just scribed another line down there to make it look like there's another panel line. So the only one you'll actually have to worry about is the seam line that goes down the top of the Mohawk sensor, or down the whole Mohawk sensor, because I want to be able to paint this face and then slide it into the head when it's done. How I propose we fix this is we're going to take this half of the head, it doesn't actually matter which half, just one of the halves, and we're going to cut the Mohawk piece off with just my hobby knife, and then I'm going to cement it to its counterpart on the other side, and that way we'll be able to remove a seam line. So once this seam line here cures, we can prime and paint this thing separately and put it together, and we'll still be able to slide the face in there just like that. So that's great. And also, this makes it a lot easier to do the hair modification, which, you know what, we're here already, we might as well tackle. So these gross soft plastic pieces plug into the inside of the helmet right there in the cheek. Now this material is not optimal, not a huge fan of it, so what I've done instead is I've picked up one roll of this tiny wire here. I can't remember what gauge it is, but it's just craft wire that I got from the craft store. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a bunch of strands.
1 hour later.
So after a whole bunch of snipping of wire, and they're not all the same length, but I'll have to cut these a little bit more. I taped the ends of them together so they're not flying all over the place. I think what I'll do is I'm going to put a dab of glue in there and then like set all of these hair follicles in place, and then I will clean it up after, sand it down if it needs to be sanded down, and then cut it. And then I can just mask them off and paint the head as usual. So I think that's what I'll do. It's probably the easiest way to do this. So I painted a few of these pieces already. These are just the ones that I know I'm not really gonna have to do anything with until I put them on the kit. So the face is one of them. I think it turned out pretty good. The V-fin is there as well. And then just some of the other little yellow bits like the GN control rods and whatever these little vent pieces are. So those are done. They're just gonna sit over here until I need them again. So the next part of this head mod is going to be essentially me scratch building a replacement part for this gray piece. There's nothing wrong with this gray piece, it's just I'm gonna have to put a different piece in there, mod it up a little bit to do what I want it to do. So what I've done is I've started building this little white piece here, which has a hole in it, and I've slid all of my, hair strands through there. And now what I'm going to do is add some glue into that so the hair doesn't go anywhere, and then finish building that gray piece, and then this will essentially be replacing it on the back of the head. Okay, so I've just cemented this plot plate kind of bracket to the back of the head, and sort of. I've cemented it to another bracket that connects to the back of the head. So once this is cured, I'll be able to take it off, and it will just be like its own little piece that I can slide in and out. We just have to let it cure first, and then I can show you how it works, and then we can finish building the rest of the bracket together. But for now, I'm gonna set this aside and let it cure, and we will move on to something else. The other mod on the head and torso segment is going to be replacing these soft plastic pieces with something a little more, it's got a little more panache to it, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't really like these. I don't really like how wobbly they are. I'm just gonna get rid of that completely. Now, before you saw me cutting out a bunch of this stuff, I used some Scotch tape around the base of each of them to kind of hold all the strands in place. I am gonna be putting a little bit of glue in there as well, just to make sure it's nice and, steady, and then I can cut everything to fit. So how it's going to work is I'm basically going to cut this to the right length, about here, and that way I should be able to pose it if I need to, and it won't look super weird. I actually think this looks pretty cool, and I think it's going to look much, much better, obviously, when everything's painted. But this one isn't going to be too difficult. It's just fitting in this little hole here, which I can kind of hide underneath the head, so that one I think is going to be fine. So the Nadleeh comes with a basic loadout of mobile suit weaponry, including a beam rifle, a shield, and 2 beam sabers. Tackling these in order of complexity, the beam sabers are identical to the ones with the HG Gundam Virtue, and since those sabers are stored behind the Virtue's knee guards, there is no place to store these accessories on the Nadleeh. Because I'd very much like to store the beam saber hilts on the Nadleeh, mostly so I don't lose them, I'm gonna scratch build a little beam saber rack and install it on the underside of the shield. I think this is a lore-friendly way to include them in the kit. So now we're working on the shield's mounting bracket. So this round piece here, I've just sanded down the bottom to make it nice and flat. We're going to try and make the sides flat too. I kind of want this to be a little bit more square. And the reason is I'm going to have to build it out a bit more. So I'm going to take this big piece of plot plate here and attach it onto the bottom and elongate it, because the idea is when you put this bad boy on here, it's going to have to go all the way around the arm, and I'm going to mount the beam sabers on the bottom of the arm here. So the suit can just reach across and grab a beam saber when it needs it. And yeah, I think that's a fun, cool way to make this piece make a little bit more sense and give it a place to store the beam sabers. Now, the actual mounting bracket part is going to be on another piece of plot plate that's going to go, it's not going to be this thick or whatever, but this is going to attach below it. All right, so the actual mounting bracket for the beam sabers, it's going to attach down here, but I am going to magnetize it so I can remove it to take this shield bracket thing off. So we're going to attach the magnets onto there once this is all cured up and I can continue. The beam sabers here are, standard 00 beam sabers with this little peg here. To connect them to the beam saber rack that's going to go underneath this the shield arm, I'm going to need a peg. So I cut this little plot plate peg off, and he just slides right in. Slides right into the beam saber, and we're going to glue that to some more plot plate and make a little plot plate stack. Now I'm Martha Stewarting this because I kind of already did it off camera. I've been going through a lot lately. Just didn't really feel like being on camera, so I did this off camera, but I don't really think it's a big deal because all it is gluing a bunch of plot plate together and then sanding it down into a way that I think looks good. And so what I did was I made this. This is the thing here. Well, and then I glued 2 magnets to it, which also doesn't require any brain power. And those attached to the magnets on the bottom of the shield mount. So here's the shield mount on the arm. There we go. Obviously, when it's all painted and everything, it'll be all gray and look more or less, it'll fit in. I got to do a little bit more shaping on this, and we'll cover that in just a sec here, but magnetizes right there. And then you take these little beam sabers and you just slide them on. And there you go. There is a beam saber rack underneath the arm that mounts the shield. And I think it's a fairly lore accurate way to store these because the silhouette, first of all, is like non-existent. It still essentially just looks like the Gundam Nadleeh stock as is. But when you turn it around, you'll see this and it's like, yeah, whatever, it's got beam sabers there. Where else is the Nadleeh supposed to store its beam sabers? So there we go. So to illustrate better how to make this mod, because it was very hard to see on camera and almost illegible, so what I decided to do is just show you this. This is a plot plate stack. All this is pieces of plot plate cemented together, layered on top of one another, like a cake. And then when you're done, you just take your sandpaper or sanding file or whatever it is, and you just sand down the sides until you have them looking how you want them to. So in this case, it would be flush. You can also do, obviously, 45-degree angles. You can do whatever. You can do whatever you want. And that's what I've done with this piece. It's just a bunch of different pieces of plot plate cemented together and sanded until they are roughly the shape I want them to be. Is it perfect? No. But is anything perfect? Really? Is anything really perfect? I don't think so. Except for the smile of a happy child. That's perfect. Or like, I don't know, the loving eyes that your dog gives you when it's sitting in a sunny patch. That's perfect. And once again, boom, attaches to the arm, and then it's there, and it's mostly invisible, but there's a place to store the beam sabers, and it looks roughly lore accurate. So I'm pretty happy with that. The last accessory is the Nadleeh's GN beam rifle. It's an interesting piece of plastic. I've closed the seam line that runs the length of it, and I've sanded the included beam effect part, which looks like a little bayonet. There's just one area I'd like to modify though, this secondary handle, which you can see here. The beam rifle mod is going to be very simple. I'm going to just add a swiveling handle to it, because normally this handle just sticks straight out like this, and I don't think it looks very good. So I would like it to be able to swivel, or turn, I guess. So I've just plugged this hole with some plot plates so you can't see directly through the rifle anymore, which I thought was kind of weird. So now we are going to start the mod. The first step is to cut out a piece of plot plate rod. It can be any thickness you want, but it should be large enough that we could drill a hole through its center that matches the diameter to the brass pin we'll be inserting into it. Then, we're going to find the center of this rod and drill a hole through it. We don't have to drill a hole all the way through to the end. About 75% of the way through should be enough. And once that's done, cut the rod in half. On one half, using a chisel that matches the thickness of the secondary handle, this is fun, chisel out a small socket in the side that this handle could slot into, and cement the handle into the socket, being careful not to push it too far in so it doesn't intersect the drill hole. Let it cure for a bit. The next step will be to slide the brass pin through both halves of the rod. Now trim the end of the pin if needed and reattach both halves of the plot plate rod. I'm going to put a tiny piece of plot plate along the back of one half of the plot plate rod so it has some distance from the rifle body, which should allow the joint movement clearance. As a final result, I'm going to cement a little circular plastic detail piece onto the end with the exposed pin there, just to make it look a little more convincing. And now we just slide the handle into place, like so, and boom, we have a movable foregrip.
Big reminder that we have a Discord channel. Wow, hello, how's it going? So our Discord channel is free. There's a link in the description below. Come on in if you like Gunpla, if you like to talk about Gunpla, if you like to see what people are doing with Gunpla, what's happening in the Gunpla sphere. There's a lot of really talented creators and passionate people. It's a lot of fun, I really like it. It's a fun way for me to connect with a lot of people and talk about the thing that we all love. So come on in, join us, sit around the table in Liam's hobby room. It's kind of what I wanted it to be like. As if my hobby room had people living in it. It doesn't. No one, I don't force anyone to live here. Shut up. No, don't talk. You're not allowed to speak right now.
There are quite a few seam lines on a lot of the pieces here, the arms. They kind of half hide some of them. half hide some of them. That's kind of hard to wrap my head around. But yeah, that's a thing you might have to contend with. Now, you could close them all and then just mask off these parts and paint them. Or you can do what I'm doing. I've just done like 4 of these kits, and then maybe one could say that I'm getting a little lazy. I mean, I certainly wouldn't say that, but other people could. Basically, what I've been doing here is just taking this chisel and like scribing the seam lines into panel lines because it's just what I'm doing, man. I don't know. Now, putting them side by side, this one I've done a bunch of scribing on, and this one I have not. It's really hard to tell on camera, but there's just a few extra panel lines that are going in here to make sure it is up to snuff.
All right, so now it's time to start sanding down this headpiece here. Let's just see if it comes out. Actually, what am I doing? What am I doing, man? I built it so it could come out. Oh no. Oh God, what have I done? Okay, let's just separate this here. And then separate this here. What have I done? I made it in a strange way. That's a fun little voice I'm doing. Okay, so here's the hair. Here's the hair piece. So now I've just got to sand this piece down and kind of turn it into this piece. And that should be just fine. That should be just fine. I think I can do that.
Okay, so I finished painting for the most part. Everything's turned out pretty well. Better than expected in some areas. In some areas, maybe I was expecting a little bit more. But I'm at a fun point where I'm going to assemble the kit, but I have to give Nadleeh a bit of a haircut because the hair is a bit long. So we're just going to cut some of this stuff off. She's got some crazy split ends, so we're going to try and tame these unruly hairs a little bit. For those of you who do not know, and I don't really know who would because I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the show, but my father is a hairstylist. And that's where I learned these amazing skills to cut hair at 2 different lengths. I hope my dad's not watching. He'll be very, very upset. This has got to be the first time I've ever cut my Gun Plus hair. Now I'm just gonna bend it into shape because it's a little stiff. Now it's nice having a wire that has a very thin gauge to work with because that makes it very, very easy to bend. You know, that's still a bit long on one side. Look, my dad is the hairstylist, okay? Not me.
I'm going to paint this kit in pretty much the same way that I've painted my other 00 kits, so I'm not going to go through the whole painting process because I just covered it in, like, I think the Exia, the Dynamis, and the Virtue builds. So, yeah, you know, yeah, it's fine. I just don't feel like there's a need to do it again. But every time I start a new series of kits, or if I'm painting something that's, like, very out there, then yeah, I'll show it. But on this one, it's mostly just white, so there's not really a whole lot to see. That being said, you ready to see the finished build? Because I want to show it to you. Well, here it is, with nothing done. Well, just a few things done. Seam lines closed, mostly. And here it is all painted up. Well, that about does it for me for this video. Next time I'm going to be doing some villain suits. We got some villain mobile suits from Gundam 00. I'm pretty excited about those. Do I have it kicking around here? Yeah, I got some back here. Anywho, thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it. I really liked working on this kit, even if it's a bit of a difficult time for me right now, moving through some stuff. But hey, that's life, you know what I'm saying? You gotta keep doing the thing, you gotta keep sharing what you love, talking about what you love, and celebrating our hobby together. It's what's helping me get through it. So thank you very much for being here with me today. That about does it for me until next time. So take care of one another, and I'll see you guys next time on Liam's Hobby Room.